August 2011, and my grandmother and I found ourselves spending Shabbat in Warsaw, Poland. During the day, we prayed at the Nozik Synagogue, the last surviving synagogue of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. After davening, those present gathered in the center of the synagogue to hear the rabbi say the Kiddush. And as I was standing next to my grandmother, two of us with a kos in our hands, wine ready to drink, my focus was on what kind of food will they have and the Kiddush. I'm hungry. And the rabbi began the pleasant melody of the Shabbos morning Kiddush. And as he approached the last words, Borei Pri Hagafen, I said, Amen. Took a sip, and then I looked, and I realized that my grandmother wasn't standing next to me anymore. I surveyed the crowd to see if I could see anyone that resembled her. Maybe she had gone, but she was not in the sanctuary. However, I did notice that in the back, a door that was previously closed was now ajar. I proceeded to walk through that door and into a room of Jewish artifacts that survived the Shoah. I can now see that my grandmother, Babcia in Polish, was standing in front of a scroll of Megillat Esther encased in glass. I said loudly, Babcia, what are you doing there? There's a Kiddush in the other room. But as I walked closer to where she was standing, I could hear the sound of her sobbing. I said, Babcia, is everything okay? She was just standing there, her face nearly pressed against the glass and crying. I didn't know what to do, I didn't know what to say. But then, she put her hand on my arm and said, I remember that I dressed in costume, standing next to my mother in the balcony of our synagogue, looking down at my older brother, Avrom, and my father sitting below, as the Chazan read the Megillah aloud. Later that evening, I followed my brother and his friends around our village as they collected tzedakah. And my brother yelled at me, Go home, Polina, go home. None of the other boys have sisters who follow them so much. And she replied, but Mama said I could go with you. He said, no, go home, you're embarrassing me. My grandmother said to me then, as she quite often does, David, you only know one side of me. I live in two different worlds. The same is true for all those who survived the Shoah. The same is true for many of your grandparents. They lived in two worlds. One filled with brothers and sisters, mothers and daughters, fathers and sons, uncles, aunts, bubbies, zadies, teachers and friends. 6 million of them, in fact. A world of 6 million souls. A world just as real, but sadly a part of the past. The grandmother I know is an immigrant to the United States, the garment factory worker, graduate of Brooklyn College and Pratt, a retired New York City public school librarian. She spends her time listening to Alexander Borodin, reads Chekhov, Tolstoy, and advocates for both human and animal rights. She is not only the matriarch of my family, but a mother to so many Russian and Polish immigrants, Jewish and non-Jewish alike. Tonight, my grandmother will share with us a part of what that world must not be forgotten, the world of the 6 million souls. It is my honor to introduce my Babcia, Mrs. Polajasky.
The light is right to my face. Thank you for inviting me to hear my story. The story, not only my story, it's the story of my family and what I went through. I did not go to concentration camps. Supposedly, I had it easy. So you'll hear how easy I had it. I was born in Poland, anti-Semitic Poland. However, I had a lot of friends, non-Jewish friends, very close ones. I had Polish friends, I had German friends, I had one Ukrainian friend. 1939, September 1st, we all know, Second World War greeted us. The Russians came in, they stayed with us for a while. Life has changed, not too much, but it changed. Then June 22nd, 1941, Germany attacks Russia. Within a week, the Germans were in our home. The first German soldier that came into our house. Verfluchte Judenbrot, damn Jew, give me bread. In the meantime, he looked around, he saw the gramophone, he looked around at the records, he threw down, he saw the Chazonish records, he threw them down, stamped all over them, walked out. That was the first greeting. My mother sent me out in the street to go to join my Christian friends to take a walk. I walked with them. A German soldier walks over and says, Jude, the girls are giggling. I know darn well what that word meant. The second day I did not walk out. Then started, as the army walked away, they singed the synagogue, they put the synagogue on fire, put the synagogue on fire. A criminal Volksdeutsche tortures my uncle's house on fire. Everything burns, including his horses that we had. My uncle moves in from the neighboring communities, the Gentiles, who are our friends, Polish people, Christians, they come and try to make sure that our house doesn't get burned. Now, the commandants from the adjacent communities, from Tuchin, from Kostovo, each one in turn keeps asking for demands. They're asking for demands for food because they know that we're farmers. Even though my parents did have a store, but right now very few of the products were still there. The farmers, so they're asking for bread, they're asking for flour. The community sends my mother to represent the community. In the meantime, the German commander sent someone that they should take boys. So when my mother came back and the commander said that will be okay, it turned out that he sent someone else to recruit, and they took 4 boys from the community. They took one of them, I remember, he was a cousin of mine, Uncle Belinsky, and they took him supposedly to work. But the work there turned out to be that they took them out of town and shot them. My uncle, my aunt's little girl gets sick with diphtheria. The little girl, Gittel, she is now 4 years old. There's a little girl of 2. So they have to be taken to the doctor to Kostovo, which is 8 kilometers away. My aunt takes Gittel and takes my cousin, Visi Yukinuk, to help her with the baby. They go to the doctor's office in Kostovo, which is 8 kilometers away. And the office is full, so they send out Visi with the baby to wait outside. By the time my aunt got through with the baby, the child, and walks out of the office, Gittel disappeared. The neighbors are telling her that Gittel was swept away because the Gestapo was making its rounds sweeping up, taking everybody in. They knew us very well because a week or 2 right after they came in, they ordered us first to put white bands with Jude. Then they asked us to have yellow patches in front and in the back. Yellow patches 8 centimeters in diameter. And always where the orders were given, it was always if you're not going if we find you without the patches, if you find you'll be shot, you and the whole family. So these were always orders. Then periodically, the Germans started coming from each side, from each county. They started coming and surrounding the community and started shooting. So of course we used to run towards the woods, run through the forest. I'm running with Zippe, who was my girlfriend, and she lived nearby. She grabs her 2-year-old sister, and we're running with bullets showering after us, barraging. I turned around, I said, Zippe, Heitz is dead. The little girl she was carrying died. She put down Heitz and we keep running. This was going on and on for another week, from the surrounding communities. Single Jewish people come telling us of the horrors of the destruction of their village, destruction of their community, of that community, and always now rounding up the people, taking them out of town and killing them. Rovno, which is 40 kilometers away, an order is given that all the Jews who do not have a permit, a working permit, should come and congregate outside of the city. They'll be transferred to a new place. The new place turned out to be the Sussenkis, which are trees. It was a wooded area. They were driven from there. These were 3,000 people from Rovno, driven there and murdered in cold blood. Murdered. The German soldier just was standing, gunning them down. One of my cousins, Esther, my mother's cousin, came out from under the dead 2 days later and showed up. It turned out that Rabbi Mayofis, when the Germans said that he saw the grave, he said, Jews, we have sinned, and God's punishment, that this is what we're getting. So of course he was shot down by the Germans and didn't say anymore. Now, this was going on with the Germans coming in. My mother is getting reports her cousins are starving in the city in Rovno. She makes an attempt to go and bring them food. So of course the Ukrainian has to take them because by now they're not allowed to work for us. They're not allowed to do anything for us. So the Ukrainian is going to take them to Rovno. My mother arranged for me to sleep outside of the community because of the Germans, when they surround early in the morning, that I should not be the victim. I have a bad dream. I come running early in the morning to beg my mother not to go to Rovno. When I came home, it was too late. She already went, because the night before, we were parking by the oak tree, and she was telling me, this is a time I cannot help you anymore. Keep running, do not let them catch you, don't ever give yourself up. And here I came, I had to do the chores. My grandmother who lived with us, she was sick, and I had to help her out. And this was going on every time we turned around, there was another raid. October 28th, the last raid. My grandmother was shot about a kilometer away from home, and she was about 70, and she was running, and we had a lot of people who died, and we already stayed in the forest. We did not go back home. This was the time that we already continued staying in the forest, wandering around, homeless, not knowing where to stay, where to eat. At night, I came upon a farmhouse. I looked for potato peels. I collected them, ate them, and promptly threw them up. My father said, we have to find, maybe somebody will let us in, I'll pay somebody. Eventually, we found a Polish man who was a friendly guy, and he helped us find a place in the forest. We dug a bunker, and we moved in there December 6, 1942. We moved in and somehow felt safe. We had a cover over our head. We had a roof over our head. We were not visible to the enemies. My father used to go out at night. He used to go to one of the Ukrainians who had our fields, and he could find everything that he collected from the field. So my father used to go there. He used to bring back the bread. We stayed there from December 6th till January 6th, because my father came back one day and said he saw spots, he saw steps. In other words, somebody discovered our hiding place. We had to be removed from there, because we heard already from that same Polish man that there were about 9 bunkers of people we knew that somebody gave them away, and the Germans came and murdered them. We continued wandering now and wondering where to settle now. We found a Polish guy for money. My father paid him, and the silo, he let us go in, and we stayed there, the four of us. That was my father, my brother, my father's youngest sister, and we stayed there till springtime when snakes started showing up, poisonous snakes. We had to move out of there and move into the stove that the Polish guy had next to his barn. He used to have pigs in one, goats in another one. Now he had nothing because the Germans used to come periodically and take away all the livestock from the farmers. We settled down in that place, and I don't know how long I stayed there because I got sick with typhoid fever and scabs, and I don't know better. One morning when I was feeling better already, my father took me out to the forest for my needs, and that's the last time that I saw my father. And I told him at that time that the ground seemed to be shaking as if trucks are coming. But turned out, when I woke up, my aunt woke me up with her hand over my mouth, and I saw a German standing by that little door, ready to open up the door. Another German whistled to him, and he moved away. He went away. The Polish owner, farmer, came through the cracks telling us, Jews, get out, because my family will be killed when you're found. I said to Mr. Baginski, if they find us here, I don't know you, you don't know me, but if you're chasing us out, I'm going to go to the Germans and tell them that you were hiding us. He let us stay till the Germans disappeared, till they went away. They moved away. We went over at night, we walked over to the forest, and we found other Jews from the community, from our surrounding villages, from surrounding communities, and we kept moving with them. We never stayed in the same place, fearing, that a shepherd may see us and denounce us. And so we kept moving. The raids were continuous. Every second day, every day, there was still shooting and shooting. We always lost members of the community. One day I'm walking, there's another raid, and I'm running away with my aunt, my father's youngest sister. And I'm running with her, and we were very hungry, so we went down to pick some grass to eat, some sour grass and other grasses. And we did not realize that we moved too close to the main road, and suddenly we realized that a horse and wagon somebody's riding a horse and wagon. These were Ukrainian nationals. So we started running. As soon as they saw us, they started shooting at us. My aunt ran with the path. I went into the forest, between the trees, and I survived. That was May 28th in 1943 already. And I came to this Polish woman, a friendly one. She gave me a piece of bread and a glass of milk, and she said, eat and drink me and disappear fast. I don't want anybody to see you. So I disappeared fast, and as I started walking, there was a dog walking next to me. I suddenly felt very sure of myself, because a Jewish girl doesn't have a dog. The dog walked into the wheat. I lay down to sleep, the dog next to me, keeping me warm. I woke up shortly afterward, the dog was gone, and I looked around and I said, I better make my way to the forest, because in the daytime I cannot walk through that path. And I made my way to the forest and joined the other Jews. We never stayed in the same place. We continued moving until it got very, very bad. I used to go to the Ukrainian guy who had a lot of our, from the farm and from our properties. And he told me to wait by a corner by the bridge. He says, I don't want anybody to see you. So the corner to the bridge was about 3 avenues away. He went out and started shooting at me. Of course, I jumped into the forest, and he came up galloping on a horse, saying he was only joking around. Of course, we knew about that. So suddenly, the raids were becoming so frequent, we kept losing too many people. And So Laser Gourdelet, he survived. He was there with a wife with 2 children, and also his sister, and the family. There were three of the family. One little boy was Yankele. One was there. Everybody with 2 children, with 2 boys. They just died naturally. They got sick and died. And when the last one was being buried, the father was a cantor once upon a time. He raised his hands to God and said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, God, oh God, why have you forsaken me? Why have you forsaken us? And I can still hear his voice, but we buried the last one, Matala and Yankele were buried already. And we continued running. We had to move to a different area because the grades were becoming too frequent. We moved for all night, we walked, and we came into Kudrinka, and what it was. And when we came there were fields full of harvest left. This was the Polish community left in a hurry, because now that the Ukrainian nationals got through with the Jews, they got to work on the Poles. So they left everything and they just went with their lives to the cities. And many of them joined the Germans now, and they came to hunt the Ukrainians. We were in between, so we had to be hiding from the Ukrainians and the same Polish guys who now joined the Germans. We continued being there till, we were there till the winter. Yossel, who was my father's cousin, came from a different area where he was staying, and when he found me, he said, you come with us, you stay with us, not with the people from your community. And he took me away. Because of him, I survived. Because 8 days before liberation, 8 days, the Ukrainian nationals came in with axes and with pitchforks and brutally murdered every one of them. The only one who survived there was Chaya, who was about 7 years old. She pretended, when her mother was killed and thrown on her, she pretended to be dead. And Manya was living in a corner, and they did not spot her because there were no electric lights there. Manya came out later when it got quiet and took Chaya, and I met her like a few days later. I met them in the forest because Leza came running to us because Yossel and Nessie, his wife and his 7-year-old daughter, were in a different area, and we had to go into hiding now. So we went into a barn with hay and dug a deep hole and sat down. So it was Yossel's friend who came to tell us about it. Yossel, Nessie, Rachel, and I. We were sitting there for 8 days. Yossel used to go out at night and take the icicles and bring that we should just suck a little bit of the icicles, because Rachel used to lick her mother's lips just to get a little bit of moisture. And every so often Yossel would ask quietly, push Perla, see if she's still alive. Just touch her if she's still alive. The second or third day we're sitting there, we hear somebody with a pitchfork trying to say, where are these Jews hiding? They must have been here, because I don't know. He was a small distance away from us, and he gave up. 8 days we were sitting in that hall. After 8 days we heard the front approaching, we heard the shooting going on. We were waiting for the Russians to come and liberate us. Finally, Yossel decided to go down with his friend. It was the Ukrainian New Year. So they were all sitting there in the backyard, enjoying their meals. And then they were surprised to see where's Yossel, where did he come, where did the Žid come from? So he said, well, the Russians have seen us and they sent us just for security. He told them that the Russian military have seen us, so this way they're not going to kill us. But at the same time, he opened up the door to the barn and came upstairs. He said, girls, children, you have to go down. Neither I nor Rachel, we didn't want to budge. He said, I'll take a stick and start working on you if you don't get down. He helped us down the ladder. We down, and Nessie, the cousin's wife, and I, the first thing we went is to the water. We all drank the water from a pail. We drank out the whole pail of water. We promptly threw it up. And Yossel said, we have to move on. We cannot stay there. They should not get wind that we're not collected, that nobody sent us here. So we started walking, and we walked, until a Russian truck drove by, and we raised our hands because Yossel and Nessie were far away already, even though she was limping because she had her foot. And we told them to pick up their parents. So they picked us up, and they picked up Yossel and Nessie. No sooner did we go in the truck, a German plane started cruising and shooting at us. The Russian chauffeur said, I would rather not die from my own driving than die from a German bullet, and he took off. The plane flew away, and we lost him. And then, of course, we came in for interrogations by the Russians, and there were 4 Jewish boys who survived together with us, but they were not together now with us. They were already being interrogated by the Russians. The Ukrainians in the last few weeks, the nationalists, recruited some of us to peel potatoes, clean their horses. But they kept an eye on us because they didn't want witnesses. So they kept asking each one of us, did you work for the Ukrainians? And I said, no. Yossel? No. They asked the 4 boys, the Russians. They took them out and they shot each and every one of them after they survived. So Manel survived, and later on Yossel we went to Tuchin. After liberation, we went to the city, and from there, the 3 men and the 5 women who also survivors went to Tuchin. Maybe they can get a piece of clothing from somebody. A few kilometers before the city, a Ukrainian national on a horse approached them and surrounded the men. So Yossel said to his friends, let's surround him and take him off the horse in Yiddish. At that point, his gun went off, so he thought that they're shooting at him, so he galloped away. The men ran away. The women were murdered. It's after liberation. And this is the kind of, we were constantly, this is what we had from the Ukrainian friends. My uncle was in by a Polish family, so my Ukrainian girlfriend had a boyfriend. So she told them about my uncle hiding there. So they went in, that was already when a lot of people were liberated. They went in and cut their throats. But my uncle, his wife, and the 2 children. And Esther was given away to a Polish woman who was childless, married to a Ukrainian. The Ukrainian shot her and shot the baby. My mother's cousins in Rovno, they all went on July 14, 1942. They were all taken, and only years later I found out that they were all murdered in Yanova Dolina, which is about 40 kilometers away from Rovno. And most of my mother's cousins and my father's cousins, nobody survived. So thank you very much for listening.